The following is a class on the Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, Chapter number 3, Text number 14, given by His Grace Sriman Sankarshan Das Adhikari, recorded on March 13th, 2007, in Sofia, Bulgaria.
Etachtushrushyatam vidvan Suttanor harsi bhashitum Katahari katodorka Satangshu sadasi dhruvam. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. O learned Sutta Goswami, please continue to explain such topics to us because we are all eager to hear. Besides that, topics which result in the discussion of the Lord Hari should certainly be discussed in the assembly of devotees. Purport. As we have already quoted above from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Rupa Goswami, even mundane things, if dovetailed in the service of the Lord Sri Krishna, are accepted as transcendental. For example, the epics or the histories of Ramayana and Mahabharata, which are specifically recommended for the less intelligent classes, women, Shudras, and unworthy sons of the higher castes, are also accepted as Vedic literature because they are compiled in connection with the activities of the Lord. Mahabharata is accepted as the fifth division of the Vedas after its first four divisions, namely Sama, Yajur, Rig, and the Tarva. The less intelligent do not accept Mahabharata as part of the Vedas, but great sages and authorities accept it as the fifth division of the Vedas. Bhagavad Gita is also part of the Mahabharata, and it is full of the Lord's instruction for the less intelligent class of men. Some less intelligent men say that Bhagavad Gita is not meant for householders, but such foolish men forget that Bhagavad Gita was explained to Arjuna, a grihastha, family man, and spoken by the Lord in his role as a grihastha. So Bhagavad Gita, although containing the high philosophy of the Vedic wisdom, is for the beginners in the transcendental science, and Srimad Bhagavatam is for graduates and postgraduates in the transcendental science. Therefore, literatures like the Mahabharata and the Puranas and similar other literatures, which are full of the pastimes of the Lord, are all transcendental literatures, and they should be discussed with full confidence in the society of devotees. The difficulty is that such literatures, when discussed by professional men, appear to be mundane literature, like histories or epics, because there are so many historical facts and figures. It is said here, therefore, that such literature should be discussed in the assembly of devotees. Unless they are discussed by devotees, such literatures cannot be relished by the higher class of men. So the conclusion is that the Lord is not impersonal in the ultimate issue. He is the Supreme Person, and He has His different activities. He is the leader of all living entities, and He descends at His will and by His personal energy to reclaim the fallen souls. Thus He plays exactly like the social, political, or religious leaders, because such roles ultimately culminate in the discussion of topics of the Lord. All such preliminary topics are also transcendental. That is the way of spiritualizing the civic activities of human society. Men have inclinations for studying history and many other mundane literatures, stories, fiction, dramas, magazines, newspapers, etc. So let them be dovetailed with the transcendental service of the Lord, and all of them will turn to the topics relished by all devotees. The propaganda that the Lord is impersonal, and that He has no activity, and that He is a dumb stone without any name and form, have encouraged people to become godless, faithless demons. And the more they deviate from the transcendental activities of the Lord, the more they become accustomed to mundane activities that only clear the path to hell, instead of return them home back to Godhead. Footnote. Even 50 years ago, now this was written 30 years ago, so now we have to think 80 years ago. You see. Even 50 years ago or 80 years ago, the social structure of all Indians was so arranged that they would not read any literature that was not connected with the activities of the Lord. They would not play any drama not connected with the Lord. They would not organize a fair or ceremony not connected with the Lord, nor would they visit a place that was not holy and sanctified by the pastimes of the Lord. Therefore, even the common man in the village would talk about Ramayana and Mahabharata, Gita and Bhagavatam, even from his very childhood. But by the influence of Kali, they have been dragged to the civilization of the dogs and hogs, laboring for bread without any sense of transcendental knowledge. Continuing with the purport. Srimad Bhagavatam begins from the history of the Pandavas with necessary politics and social activities. And yet Srimad Bhagavatam is said to be Paramahamsa Samhita, or the Vedic literature meant for the topmost transcendentalist. And it describes Parangyanam, the highest transcendental knowledge. Pure devotees of the Lord are all Paramahamsas, and they are like the swans who know the art of sucking milk out of a mixture of milk and water. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurudmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupagadamhayam Dadati Svapadantikam. So, it is quite noteworthy how the Paramahamsa is described here. The Paramahamsa has the ability, actually the swan has the ability to take a mixture of milk and water. And he is able to extract only the milk and leave the water. This is an extraordinary ability that is possessed by the swan. So now, do you know why the great sages are compared to swans? Do you understand why? That they can extract Krishna from this material world. In every sight, in every sound, in every smell, in every taste, in every sensation, they are able to extract Krishna. Rasaham apsukonteya prabhashmi shashishuryayo pranava sarva vedeshu shabdake purushangnashu. At every step they are experiencing Krishna. This is confirmed as follows in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhakti pareshanu bhavo varaktir anyatra chaishatraka ekakalaha prapadyamanashya tasnadashush pushti tushti purusha shonagasham. That those persons who are engaged in devotional service, pure bhakti, they experience love, direct perception of the Lord, and detachment from all other things. Bhakti pareshanu bhavo. they are able to extract Krishna from everything. Just as the swan extracts the milk from the mixture of milk and water.
Тези личности, които са отдават чисто предано служене на Бога, те изпитват едновременно любов към Бога и непривързаност към всичко материално и подобно на лебеда, те могат да извлекат Кришна от всичко материално.
So what hope is there for us poor conditioned souls who do not have such transcendental abilities?
И каква е надеждата за нас, нещастните обособени души, които нямаме такива трансцендентални способности?
How will we connect with Krishna?
Как ние можем да се свържем с Кришна?
Therefore, Krishna has mercifully appeared in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Затова Кришна милостиво се проявил под формата на Шримад Бхагаватам.
So that we can, by hearing and discussing the Bhagavatam in the assembly of devotees,
Така че ние да можем, чрез слушане и обсъждане на Бхагаватам сред преданно дадени,
we can come into direct contact with the Lord.
да влезем в директен досег с Бога.
This direct contact with Krishna
Този директен контакт с Кришна
will purify us of the contamination of material existence.
ще ни пречисти от замърсяването на материалното съществуване.
It will purify us from the contamination of the three modes of material nature.
То ще ни пречисти от замърсяващия контакт на трите гуни на природата.
And enable us to have direct contact with the Lord.
И ще ни позволи директно да се свържем с Бога.
Premanjana charita bhakti valochanena santaksa daiva hridayeshu valokayanti yang shama shundaram achyutyat garasvarupam govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. By purifying the consciousness, by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam,
Чрез пречистване на съзнанието посредством слушане на Шримад Бхагаватам,
our eyes will become anointed with Krishna Prem.
нашите очи ще бъдат намазани с Кришна према.
Right now we are suffering from cataracts.
В момента ние се страдаме от катаракт на очите.
We are blind. We are not able to see Krishna.
Ние сме слепи и не можем да видим Кришна.
But by this Harikatha,
Но посредством тази хариката,
by this Bhagavad Katha,
тази Бхагават,
the dirt in the heart will be cleansed away.
замърсяванията в сърцето ще бъдат отмити.
And we will be able to see Krishna everywhere within everything.
И ние ще сме способни да видим Кришна навсякъде и във всичко.
Everything within Krishna and Krishna within everything.
Всичко се намира в Кришна и Кришна е във всичко.
We simply have to go on hearing, go on discussing and hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Ние просто трябва да продължаваме да слушаме и да дискутираме Шримад Бхагаватам.
Now do you understand why Prabhupada instituted the daily Bhagavatam class?
Сега разбирате ли защо Прабхупад е установил всеки ден да има лекция върху Бхагаватам?
Because Prabhupada knew how important this daily study of the Bhagavatam is.
Защото Прабхупад е знал колко е важно това всекидневно изучаване на Бхагаватам.
Nashta praishvavadeshu nityam bhagavata sevaya. Nityam bhagavata sevaya. One should always be studying Srimad Bhagavatam every day.
Нитям Бхагавата Севая означава, че човек винаги трябва да изучава Шримад Бхагаватам всеки ден.
The Bhagavatam has two forms.
Бхагаватам има две форми.
There is the book Bhagavatam,
Книгата Бхагаватам
and there is also the person Bhagavatam.
и също така личността Бхагаватам.
Who is the person Bhagavatam?
Коя е тази личност?
That is the spiritual master.
Това е духовният учител.
By hearing the Bhagavatam,
Слушайки Бхагаватам
the book Bhagavatam,
от книгата
and serving the person Bhagavatam,
и слушайки на личността Бхагаватам,
all that is inauspicious within the heart
всичко, което е неблагоприятно в сърцата,
becomes reduced practically to nil.
се намалява на практика до нула.
And thus loving service to that transcendent Lord,
И тогава любовно служене на трансценденталния Бог,
who is praised with transcendental hymns,
който е възхваляван с трансцендентални химни,
becomes reestablished as an irrevocable fact.
това служене се установява като един необратим, неотменим факт.
So this Bhagavad Seva is so important.
Затова тази Бхагавата сева е толкова важна.
This is how our Krishna consciousness will be reawakened.
Ето как нашето Кришна съзнание ще се събуди отново.
The Krishna consciousness is already there.
Кришна съзнанието е вече там.
It is simply covered now by the influence of the external energy.
Сега то е просто покрито от влиянието на външната енергия.
If we will take shelter of the internal energy,
Ако ние приемем подслон при вътрешната енергия,
then we will become free from the influence of the external energy.
ние ще се освободим от влиянието на външната енергия.
We have to be in the internal energy or the external energy. One energy we must be within. You cannot be outside of the energy of the Lord. That is not possible.
Ние трябва да бъдем под влиянието на една от двете енергии, външната или вътрешната. Не можем да бъдем извън обхвата на енергиите на Бога.
But we have free choice.
Но ние имаме свободен избор.
Which energy would you like to be in?
Под коя енергия бихме желали да бъдем?
Would you like to be a free citizen in the internal energy?
Бихте ли искате да бъдете свободен гражданин в вътрешната енергия?
Or would you like to be a prisoner in the external energy?
Или искате да бъдете затворник във външната енергия?
You must be under the direction of the government. That you cannot avoid.
Задължително е да бъдете под ръководството на правителството. Това не може да избегнете.
But which way would you like to be under the direction of the government?
Но по какъв начин бихте искали да бъдете под правителството?
As a free citizen who voluntarily obeys the law?
Дали като свободен гражданин, който доброволно се подчинява на закона?
Or a prisoner who is forced to obey the directions of the government?
Или като един затворник, който е принуждаван да се подчинява на правителството?
You see, we have that choice.
Ние имаме този избор.
We live in a world of prisoners. This is the penitentiary of the spiritual world. This material world is part of the spiritual world.
Ние живеем в един свят на затворници. Този материален свят е част от духовния.
It is the prison of the spiritual world.
Това е затвора на духовния свят.
This material world does not actually exist outside of the spiritual world.
Този материален свят всъщност не съществува извън духовния.
Just like the prison exists within the confines of the state.
Както един затвор е в рамките на държавата.
This material world is actually part of the spiritual world.
Така и този материален свят всъщност е част от духовния.
It's not actually a separate world.
Той не е отделен свят.
It appears to be so for those who are incarcerated here.
Той изглежда така за тези, които са тук, са затворени.
But for those who are not incarcerated, it appears to be simply part of the spiritual world.
Но тези, които не са така обусловени, за тях това е част от духовния свят.
Just like many years ago, I used to do a preaching program in the federal penitentiary in the U.S.
Както преди много години аз провеждах така проповедническа програма в федералния
Every Saturday morning,
затвор. И всяка събота сутрин
I used to get in my little car and drive to the prison.
се качвах на моята малък автомобил и карах до затвора.
And we would have a very nice program there. I would have to go through all the gates, and I would finally be allowed into the prison.
И там имахме много хубава програма, минавайки през всички порти, най-накрая стига до затвора.
And we would have nice kirtan, prasad, and lecture there for the inmates.
Имахме хубав киртан, прасадън и лекция за затворниците.
Even though I was within the prison,
И въпреки че аз бях в рамките на затвора,
I never felt myself to be a prisoner.
никога не съм се чувствал като затворник.
I was a free citizen.
Аз бях свободен гражданин.
I can come and go out of the prison as I like, you see.
Аз можех да идвам и да излизам от затвора както си поискам.
So my perception of the prison was different from that perception of the inmates.
И моето усещане за затвора беше различно от тези, които бяха вътре в него.
If they tried to walk out of the prison, they would be shot dead by the guards.
Ако те се опитат да избягат от затвора, те ще бъдат застреляни от стражите.
So it was the same place, but the perception was entirely different.
Ние бяхме на едно и също място, но с различни възприятия, напълно различни.
So for one who is incarcerated within the prison of the three modes of material nature,
И за този, който е затворен в затвора на трите гуни на материалната природа,
this material world appears to be an insurmountable obstacle.
този материален свят изглежда като едно непреодолимо препятствие.
But for that person who is fully taking shelter of Krishna,
Но за тази личност, която е напълно прияла подслон при Кришна,
it's simply an ecstatic place for preaching activities, that's all.
това е просто едно екстатично място за проповеднически дейности.
Just like I was very enlivened to go to the prison. Those prisoners really chanted with great enthusiasm, let me tell you.
Както аз бях много въодушевен да ходя в затвора, защото затворниците възпяха с голям ентусиазъм.
And they cooked the prasadam also very ingeniously.
И те готвиха прасадама също с така много съзнателно.
They were not allowed to cook prasadam, okay? They were not allowed by the prison to cook prasadam.
На тях не им се разрешаваше да готвят прасадам в затвора.
But, you know, criminals are very clever at breaking the law.
Но вие знаете, че престъпниците са много интелигентни да нарушават закона.
So some of the inmates, they had a job working in the kitchen.
Някои от затворниците имаха кухненска работа.
And they would smuggle out butter, sugar, flour, you know. They would smuggle potatoes, they would shower cream, they would smuggle it all out and hide it under their bed.
И те крадяха в кухнята различни продукти и си ги скриваха под леглото.
And then they rigged what they called a stinger, where they take the electrical plug and they put two open wires into the electrical and run it into a bucket. And it heats up the water. So that way they would make guranga potatoes. When the guards are not looking, they were making guranga potatoes underneath the bed.
И те правиха някакво приспособление, караха някакви жици в контакта и подгряваха по някакъв начин вода и докато стражите не гледаха, те готвиха гауранга.
So in this way, every Saturday they'd have a nice love feast. Guranga potatoes, halava, fruit salad.
Така всяка събота имахме прекрасен пир на любовта с гауранга, плодова салата и гриз халва.
Very nice, tasty prasadam.
Много прекрасен, вкусен прасадам.
Completely against the rules of the prison.
И напълно против правилата на затвора.
Of course, being criminals, they took great fun in being able to break the rules and get away with them.
Разбира се, бидейки престъпници, за тях беше много забавно да нарушават правилата.
But anyway, it was very enlivening to go there and chant and have kirtan with these inmates.
Но беше, както и да беше много въодушевящо да ходиш там и да възпяваш.
So for someone who is absorbed in Krishna consciousness,
Така за някой, който е погълнат в Кришна съзнание,
this material world is not a hell.
материалният свят не е ад.
It's an ecstatic playground.
Това е едно екстатично игрище.
Just like when a little child goes to the park and there's the swings and the slide and the sandbox and the fire truck, he becomes very happy. Oh, now I'm at the playground.
Както едно дете, като отиде в парка и там, където са катерушките и различни неща за забавление, то си мисли, аз сега съм на игрище.
One who is fully surrendered to Lord Chaitanya's mission,
По същия начин някой, който е напълно отдаден на мисията на Бог Чайтания,
he becomes completely ecstatic in this material world.
той става напълно екстатичен в материалния свят.
So, I can ask now if there's any questions.
Има ли въпроси?
Yeah.
Няколко пъти чухме, че или сме под влияние на йога майя, или сме под влияние на Махамая. Но аз съм забелязал, че в служенето си често съм под влияние на двете, така си мисля. Защото липсва ми безкорисност. Как да го разбирам това?
We have heard several times that we are either under the influence of Mahamaya or Yoga Maya.
Okay.
But he says that sometimes he feels in his service that he is under the influence of both. Or is it possible? How?
Защото безкорисност ми липсва.
Because he lacks because he lacks selflessness and therefore feels like that.
Yes. In the beginning, we are influenced by both energies. We are coming out of the influence of the material nature.
Да, в началото ние сме под влиянието на двете енергии. Ние си измъкваме влиянието на материалната енергия.
And we are gradually coming more and more under the influence of the spiritual nature.
И все повече и повече попадаме под влиянието на духовната енергия.
That's a fact. And just like in the beginning, you are 1% Krishna conscious
Както в началото ти си 1% Кришна съзнание
and 99% under the influence of the material nature.
и 99% под влиянието на материалната енергия.
And then you progress to 5% Krishna consciousness.
След това напредваш до 5% Кришна съзнание.
Only 95% under the influence of the material nature.
И остава само 95% под влиянието на материалната.
And then you progress to 25% Krishna consciousness.
След това напредваш до 25% Кришна съзнание.
Only 75% under the influence of the material nature.
И остава 75% под влиянието на.
And then 90% Krishna conscious.
И тогава стигаш до 90% Кришна съзнание.
10% under the influence of the material nature.
И само 10% от външната енергия.
And then finally you achieve pure Krishna prema. You become 100% Krishna conscious with 0% influence of the material nature.
И накрая ти постигаш 100% Кришна съзнание и любов към Бога и 0% влияние на.
So it is a fact. The neophyte devotee is influenced by both energies.
И това е факт, че начинаещия преданен повлияване от двете енергии.
That's why we have to chant. We have to fight. We're fighting with Maya every day.
Затова ние трябва всеки ден да мантруваме, да се сражаваме с Майя.
That's why we have to chant quality rounds.
Затова трябва да подобряваме качеството на своето мантруване.
We have to have qualitative hearing and discussing of this Bhagavatam.
И качествено да слушаме и обсъждаме този Бхагаватам.
We have to have good quality dealings with the other devotees.
Трябва отношенията и с преданните да са качествени.
Everything must be first class because that will free us from the influence of the material nature.